Hey guys, so I'm working on the gray car today. It's been a minute since I've made a video, and probably because a lot of the projects have wrapped up for now, and the cars are on the road. So no serious pressing issues, but Colleen and I did take the gray car out for a drive last weekend and had the T-tops off. It was a lot of fun. We went up to Green Bluff, and it's out in the country. But it just had the engine had a funny loping to it, and it was hard to um, get it to rev under load all the way up in the RPM range. So you get up around 4,000 RPMs, and it just started missing and stumbling really badly. So, the car's got all new brand new ignition parts on it, new spark plugs, wires, cap, rotor, carburetor's good, using premium fuel, and it's new concept here for fuel. It's all gasoline. It's the premium gasoline with no ethanol in it. So new air cleaner and everything. So the only thing I can think of is that perhaps we have some weak valve springs, so I purchased some valve springs for it, and going to change them out today, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully that fixes our kind of misfire, I guess. Breaking up at high RPM, I'm not sure. So kind of stabbing in the dark here and throwing a few parts at it. Of course, that's always the best way to diagnose an issue, is to throw new parts at it. So here we go. Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention was that sure, we have all the ignition parts that are new on it. The carburetor's fine. What about compression? That's always a quick question. Spark fuel compression is always the trifecta for a great running engine. So yeah, I did a compression check. It's on one of the other videos, earlier videos. It's got about 135 static PSI across all 8 banks. So yeah, I mean, the diagnosis is a good one. I mean, having a weak valve spring certainly is going to present itself under load, and probably not at idle. This thing runs really well at idle. Has a very stable and smooth idle. Like everybody knows, it's got a stock, factory GM camshaft in it that came out of an 81 Corvette. So, those are rated at 180, 190 horsepower. So very low lift, very low duration, very streetable, drivable kind of camshaft. So at the end of the day, thinking about putting new valve springs in it is a good way to go. So we'll see. So first I'm gonna strip off the valve train, and then I'll pressurize the cylinders, and just with my little single spring removal tool, the twisty one that you get from Napa, I'll start pulling the valve springs off and replacing them. Okay, so I think I found the problem, and it doesn't really have to do with the valve springs. It actually has to do with the valve covers and the PCV setup. And let me explain to you what's going on. So in taking this apart and putting the springs in, I have these cylinders put back together. I have to adjust the valves, but right here is intake of number 8. Now, I pulled the plugs, and I don't know if you can see it, but look at the electrode on the number 8 spark plug. See how cruddy it is and gross? You can see it right in there. It's all fouled out. Well, I suspect that what's happening is, since this PCV valve in this aftermarket Mickey Thompson valve cover, it doesn't have a baffle right there. So in the stock valve covers, you can see the baffle in the top of it. That baffle is going to keep oil from splashing up into the PCV valve on acceleration. So when that PCV valve is plugged into that vacuum port right there, it's going directly into the number 8 intake and fouling that plug out. So that's what I suspect is the problem here. And you know, I've been wrenching on this car for, God, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years now, and never really figured it out until I had to fix this problem, trying to diagnose this problem. So now I think we are finally cooking with gas here and figuring out exactly what's going to happen. So I'm going to swap over those valve covers, and what I'm going to do is put it in the normal position where the PCV valve is in the front, and it's shielded by that baffle in the stock valve cover, stock Corvette valve cover, and then it'll run right into the front of the carburetor, distributing any fumes or any crankcase kind of you know, stuff into the top of the carburetor, which would then distribute all that through the all 8 cylinders instead of all of it going into one cylinder. I think that's our problem. I'm going to continue on with putting these valve springs in, the new valve springs in, and then we'll see what happens. I think I've solved the problem. So I'll make another short video on the conclusion on this. Car's back and running. Runs really well. Does have a little bit of a funny kind of something at RPM, but you know, kind of did already. I don't know if I've solved the problem yet, but I think we're getting closer. I'm going to go take it for a test drive. They have the new valve covers on there, and the PCB valve running to the front of the carburetor rather than the back. I added some timing, and I think we're going to have some more power just from adding 5 degrees of timing to it. Instead of 36, it's 3,000, and that's pretty normal. So we'll take it for a test drive, and we'll see what happens. Okay, I just took it on a test drive, drove it on the freeway and whatnot. Yeah, I don't think I solved anything, to tell you the truth. You know, went through the trouble of putting valve springs in it and didn't help much. But that's the way it goes sometimes when you're just kind of stabbing in the dark at a problem. So I did find that fouled spark plug that kind of makes me think that maybe you got excessive blow by on the bottom end in the pistons and rings. So, you know, it's all right. We have another engine to put into it. I hate to have to put another engine into it, but you know, bigger, better, badder, you know. And I think tomorrow what I'm going to do is put the factory wheels back on it, go take it for a test drive again. It does have a pretty vicious vibration at 70 and above. So I'm going to diagnose that, and hey, it could be the engine, could just be, you know, spark plug fouling out at higher RPMs because of the blow-by. Don't know, but certainly I think we have an out of balance tire problem, and I'm gonna check that out tomorrow. So see you then.